In a quiet little town on the corner of Main Street stood a diner called Green Fork Diner. It had been serving locals for decades, known far and wide for its thick, juicy steaks that sent mouth-watering aromas drifting through the streets, a scent that kept customers coming back again and again. Ben, a young man in his early 20s, worked as one of the diner's delivery guys. He'd been with the place for a while, dependable, hard-working, and never one to complain no matter how tough the shift got. His reason? He was saving up for his dream pickup truck, a deep red, pre-owned beauty he'd spotted at a local dealership just a few days ago. It was the first real goal he'd set for himself, something he wanted to earn with his own hands. But while the Green Fork Diner had earned its reputation for classic flavors and old-school charm, there was another reason folks in town knew the name. Nobody lasts more than one night on the graveyard shift at the Green Fork Diner. Every evening, as soon as the sun dipped below the horizon, the diner would stop taking delivery orders. Exactly at 7 p.m. Not because there weren't any late-night customers, but because no employee dared take on deliveries after dark. Even though management offered double pay for the night shift, not a single person ever made it through a second night. Some who dared to take the risk quit the very next morning. Others vanished without a word. Their families called the diner looking for them. No one knew anything. Their faces eventually turned into photos on missing person flyers in local news reports and in desperate social media posts begging for answers. The diner's owner, Thomas, a man in his early 40s with a stern face but a sincere heart, always tried to talk to his staff politely. "You don't need to take many orders," he'd say. "Just one box, one house, quick trip out and back. I just need someone, anyone." But everyone avoided his gaze. No one volunteered. Even when he raised the pay from double to triple, not a soul moved. Ben stood quietly in the back corner of the delivery room. He looked at Thomas, whose face was a mix of disappointment and exhaustion. Then Ben glanced down at his phone, the balance in his account still far from enough to buy that pickup truck. And in that instant, he made up his mind.
"Okay, I'll do it,"
Ben said calmly, breaking the silence in the room. Everything seemed to stop. The other employees turned to stare at him, some with wood eyes, others slowly shaking their heads.
Ben, don't you know people have tried before? It's not about being scared, it's just weird. Everyone who's gone out after 7 p.m., none of them ever came back to work.
But Ben spoke with a steady, determined voice.
"I'll give it a try. Just one order, right?"
Thomas looked him in the eye, silent for a moment, then gave a slow nod. He seemed like he wanted to say something, but chose not to. "All right, tomorrow night, you'll be the one doing deliveries after 7 p.m. And that was the beginning of the night that would change Ben's life forever. His first graveyard shift started off without a hitch, or at least, that's what Ben thought. Green Fork Diner was still buzzing, surprisingly lively even after 8 p.m. Ben stood in the back behind the kitchen. It's 9:50. 10 more minutes until closing, and he hadn't received a single delivery order. Ben thought to himself,
"Not bad at all. No orders, triple pay, no need to risk anything or run around in the dark. Easy money."
He chuckled quietly at the thought, but then a loud chime came from the order tablet in front of him. The screen lit up with a new notification. Order number 666. Customer, Madam Elira. Ben immediately frowned. It wasn't just the creepy number that gave him pause. The order itself was beyond bizarre.
"Raw meat? And clippings of hair and fingernails from anyone?"
He muttered, rereading the order, hoping he'd misunderstood it somehow. But no, that's exactly what it said. There was nothing like that on the Green Fork Diner's menu. So Ben did the only thing he could. He went to the one person who might have answers, Thomas. The owner stood silently by the stove in the kitchen, unusually still. When Ben handed him the tablet, Thomas took it slowly. His eyes didn't show surprise. Instead, they were filled with hesitation, as if he were hiding something. He stayed quiet for a long moment. Then, without a word, he opened a cooler beneath the counter and pulled out a large piece of raw meat wrapped in white cloth. He placed it into a delivery bag, still silent. Then he leaned in toward Ben and whispered softly, "Put some of your hair and nails in with it. And once you knock on the door, don't turn around, no matter what." Ben froze, confused. Who was this customer? Thomas said nothing more. He just folded a small piece of paper and handed it to Ben. There was no address in the system, no location, not even a street name. The paper simply read, "Old wooden house at the end of lane 13, no house number, the door will already be open." A chill ran down Ben's spine, but he told himself it was probably just the late night air getting to him. At exactly 10 p.m., he left the diner on his scooter. The streets were quiet now. Streetlights grew fewer and dimmer the farther he went. He followed the directions Thomas gave him, and as soon as he turned onto lane 13, the atmosphere changed. An old wooden house emerged from the darkness like it had stepped out of a fading mist. The front door was slightly ajar, as if it had been waiting for him. No lights, no sounds, no signs of life. Ben stepped off his scooter, took the delivery bag in hand, and inhaled deeply before placing it on the ground in front of the door. He still hadn't added his own hair or fingernail clippings. He hadn't quite worked up the courage. He raised his hand and knocked 3 times, just like he would on a morning shift. Suddenly, the door creaked open on its own. From within the shadows, a voice drifted out.
"Why didn't you follow the instructions?"
Ben froze in place. His heart thudded against his ribs with a sickening force. He stood there, ears ringing. The only sound he could hear was his own heartbeat. Then Thomas's words came rushing back. "Don't turn around after you knock on the door, no matter what." Ben took a sharp breath, clenched his jaw, and started walking away. Fast. Every fiber in his body wanted to run. But then, footsteps, racing up behind him. Fast. Too fast, and close. He turned around instantly. What he saw stopped his breath. An old woman stood inches from his face. So close she was almost touching him. Ben jolted, every muscle locking up. He stood frozen, as if cursed. The old woman. Her hair was long, unnaturally long, dragging across the ground like a tattered veil of white. Her skin was pale, almost gray, like it hadn't seen sunlight in years. Her eyes were clouded, lifeless, no light, no reflection, no trace of humanity. But what chilled Ben the most was her smile. A smile stretched far too wide, as if her lips might tear all the way to her ears. It wasn't gentle, it wasn't human, it was wrong. Ben didn't know if she was a person or something else entirely, and he didn't have time to find out. He turned and ran with everything he had. No second glance, no hesitation. He sprinted to his scooter, kicked it to life, and sped out of that alley like death itself was chasing him. His heart pounded like it might explode. His limbs felt ready to collapse at any second. He didn't know what she was, but he knew one thing. He should never have been there. From that night on, Ben understood. He finally understood why no one ever took the night shift. Not for double pay, not for triple, not even for more. It wasn't about the danger, it wasn't just hard work. It was a job that people didn't come back from. And yet, even after everything, a question still haunted him. Who was that old woman? Was she real, or was she something else? And more importantly, why did she want fingernails and hair? It wasn't random. It wasn't a joke. She wanted something from the human body. Ben didn't know what to do the next day. He tried to calm himself down, telling himself it was over. It was just one night. Sitting alone in his small room, he stared at the photo of the red pickup truck he'd taped to the wall. The same truck he'd been dreaming of for months. That old photo had always been his motivation, his reason for working so hard.
Just a little longer. I'll have enough saved soon, and then I'm done.
But before that, he had made up his mind. Tomorrow, he was going back to the diner, and he was going to find out the truth. The next night, Ben walked back into Green Fork Diner. But something had changed. He didn't feel the same. The place didn't feel the same. He walked straight to Thomas.
Mr. Thomas, I need to know, what did I deliver that night? And who was that woman?
Thomas said nothing, not a word. Ben didn't stop there. He turned to the other staff, asking them one by one. They all shook their heads. Some pretended not to hear. Some avoided his gaze altogether. It was like there was an invisible wall of silence around the place. Until Emily, one of the waitresses who had worked there for several months, quietly motioned him to the back of the diner. She glanced around nervously before speaking, her voice barely louder than a whisper.
Before Thomas opened this diner, he ran a few others in different towns, but none of them worked out. No customers, no luck. Then one day, he started talking about getting help. Not from investors, from people who deal in black magic.
Emily didn't even get to finish her sentence. Heavy footsteps echoed nearby. Thomas was standing right there, his face full of anger. "That's enough. Go do your jobs," he said sharply, his voice cutting through the night air. Emily went pale. Ben glanced at her before they quietly went their separate ways. All night, Ben looked for Emily again, but she was gone. She wasn't at the diner, and no one seemed to know where she had gone. Ben started to wonder, was she fired? Guilt gnawed at him. Just before 10 p.m., the order system dinged again, and this time Thomas handed it to him personally, without saying a word. Ben tried to read his expression, wondering if Thomas was still angry about his conversation with Emily. He took the food bag from Thomas. It was wrapped tighter than usual, and it felt heavier, like he was carrying a rock. Then he noticed a strand of hair inside the bag, hair that looked like Emily's. For a moment, he felt a strange sense of relief. Maybe she hadn't been fired. Maybe she was still here. Ben took a deep breath and rode off on his scooter, heading toward the same house as before. When he arrived, the front door was still slightly open, just like last time. No lights, no sounds. But tonight, the whole house seemed to breathe out a strange chill, like it was expecting him. He didn't knock, didn't call out. He simply placed the bag on the front step and turned away immediately. But he hadn't even left the house yet when the floor beneath his feet began to sink. He stepped back, but it was too late. The floor gave way, revealing something hidden beneath it. Ben looked down, and what he saw were bodies. Several bodies. They were buried beneath the tile floor. Some were still wearing the Green Fork Diner delivery uniforms, but their faces were twisted, their skin pale as if they had been soaked in something. They were buried in the floor. Ben understood immediately. They were former employees, and he was about to become the next one. He lunged out of the house without thinking, desperate to escape. Ben rode his scooter aimlessly, not looking back. He didn't care about going back to work anymore. In his mind, there was only one thought: run as far away as possible. He survived that night. But from that point on, Ben never returned to Green Fork Diner, and no one ever saw him again as a delivery worker.